You're jolted awake, in blackness so complete it feels solid. The air in your sawed house is wrong, thin, stale, and cold enough to sting the inside of your nose. Snow is forcing itself through every crack, not drifting in gently but being rammed in by the wind like a fist. It hits your face in needle shots. The roof above you groans, and you hear a wet, tearing sound, roots ripping free somewhere in the ceiling layer. The walls shudder in pulses, like something huge is leaning its weight against them again and again. Your blanket is damp, your hair is damp, everything is damp. The little heat you had is gone. The stove is nothing but a red eye under ash, too weak to fight what's coming. You try to sit up and your knee bumps the table, and the table bumps the lantern, and the lantern throws a frantic low flame that makes shadows jerk across the sawed walls. In that light, you see your own breath, and you see the dirt smell sweating out of the walls, earth and grass and rot, the smell of a hole that was never meant to be lived in. You listen for the wind and realize it has changed. It's not just howling now, it's screaming in a steady, grinding roar, a sound that never pauses for breath. The door is buried, you can tell, because the draft that usually sneaks in under it is gone, replaced by pressure, like the outside has sealed itself against you and is trying to crush the room smaller. You put your hand to the wall and feel it vibrating. You don't know if it's the wind or your own pulse. Your fingers come away wet with cold mud. Somewhere above your head, snow is piling onto the roof faster than you can imagine. You know what that weight does to wood. You know what it does to sod. You picture the roof sagging down inch by inch until it gives, until it caves and pins you under frozen dirt and ice. Your throat tightens and you swallow and taste smoke, damp straw, and fear. You try to breathe slow, because panic burns oxygen, and you can't afford that in a sealed room. Then you hear it, the crack. Not loud, worse, a quiet snap like a bone breaking. The ceiling drops a finger's width, dust sprinkles down, a little clump of frozen earth breaks free and hits your cheek. The lantern flickers. For a second you were sure this is it, that the prairie is going to bury you alive in your own home. You push yourself up, half crawling, half stumbling, reaching for anything, coat, boots, shovel, because if the roof comes down, you want to be moving, you want to be doing something, anything besides waiting. You are not ready. You are never ready, and you understand in that single choking moment that this land does not care how hard you worked to get here, or what papers you signed, or what you promised your family. Out here, the weather doesn't bargain, it takes. Welcome to the simulation. You are about to step into a prairie winter the way pioneers actually faced it. Cold that bites through clothing, darkness that lasts too long, and a home made from the ground because there was nothing else. If you want more survival stories like this, raw history you can feel in your bones, subscribe so you can keep surviving the past with us. Settle in, breathe slow. You're going back to the beginning now, to the day you still believed the horizon was a promise instead of a threat. You are standing on open land that looks empty until you stare long enough to see how full it is of small dangers. The grass is short in places and tall in others, bent and patched like it's been combed by months of wind. The earth under your boots is hard, baked in the sun, then softened by a recent rain. When you step, the ground gives a little and then holds. Your soles pick up mud that smells sharp, like iron and old plants. You taste dust when you breathe. It gets between your teeth and stays there. The sky is huge and bright, and it makes you squint even when the sun isn't in your eyes. Clouds move fast, stretched thin, showing how quickly weather can change here. You have come with what you could carry, what you could afford, what fit in a wagon and didn't break before you got here. The wood you own is precious. Not enough for a proper house, not enough for a barn, not enough for comfort. You look at your supplies and you already feel them shrinking. Nails count, flour counts, salt counts, lamp oil counts, every pound of feed counts. The prairie makes you do math in your head all day long, not for money, but for calories, for heat, for days left before the next resupply that might not come. You smell sweat on your own body, old sweat and road sweat. You smell the animals if you have them, a sour, warm smell that doesn't belong in this wide, clean air, but follows you anyway. You smell sun-baked cloth. You smell leather. The wind carries a faint, sweet scent of crushed grass. It would almost be pleasant if it didn't come with that constant pressure against your face, reminding you the air is never still. Even on calm days, it's there, moving, testing. There are people who told you not to come. People who said the plains eat men alive. But you have reasons. You have debts behind you, or too many mouths to feed, or nothing waiting back east except crowded streets and bosses who pay less every year. You have been sold the idea of land as salvation, a place where you work and you keep what you earn. The papers made it sound clean. The brochures made it sound simple. The agent's words were smooth. Rich soil, plenty of sun, a new start. You believed it because you needed to. Now the land is in front of you, and it does not look like salvation. It looks like exposure. No trees, no hills tall enough to block wind, just miles and miles of nothing to hide behind. When you turn in a slow circle, you see the same line where earth meets sky in every direction. It's quiet in a way that makes you notice your own breathing. You realize how far a scream would travel. You realize how far you are from help. You start working because stopping doesn't change anything. You choose a spot because you must. You look for slightly higher ground so spring melt won't flood you. You look for a place with some shelter, a shallow dip, a bank, anything. There isn't much. You mark out a rectangle in your mind, the shape of a room you hope will hold off winter. The thought of winter feels abstract right now, like a story that belongs to someone else. The sun is still warm on your neck. The days are still long. The idea of snow burying the world feels impossible. But you can sense something in the air anyway, something that doesn't match the heat. It's the way the wind shifts without warning, turning colder for a minute and then warming again, like a creature showing teeth and then hiding them. It's the way the light changes fast when clouds pass, making the prairie go from gold to gray in seconds. It's the way birds fly low some evenings, disappearing into the grass instead of staying high. You begin by digging, because digging is the only way to claim the prairie. The first shovelful is heavy. The soil is thicker than you expected, packed tight with roots. When the blade bites in, it makes a dull, wet sound. You pull it up, and the clump holds together, threaded through with grass like rope. It smells alive and decaying at the same time. The smell hits you in the back of your throat and sits there. Your hands blister fast. The shovel handle rubs your palms raw. You keep going anyway, because you need walls, and you don't have lumber. You cut sod like you're cutting bricks. You slice long strips, then chop them into blocks. Each block is heavy, heavier than it looks, and when you lift it, your arms shake. Dirt packs under your fingernails, your wrists ache. Sweat runs down your spine and makes your shirt stick. Flies find you. They buzz around your face, landing on the salt of your skin. You swat them away, but they come back. Your mouth dries out. You drink water that tastes like tin and warm leather from the canteen. You feel it slosh in your stomach as you work. You stack the sod blocks in a staggered pattern like real masonry. You press them together and smear wet mud into gaps. The grass side faces outward, the dirt side faces in, or sometimes the other way, depending on who taught you. Either way, the wall is not solid like stone. It's earth pretending to be a house. You can feel that in your bones while you build. Every time you press a block into place, you wonder what a hard rain will do. Every time you hear the wind rise, you wonder what a gale will do. As the walls go up, the inside space shrinks. It feels like building a box around yourself. The light inside becomes dim, even in midday. It turns the air greenish from the grass and the sod. You take a step inside and the smell changes immediately. Less wind, more damp earth. The temperature drops, even on a warm day, because dirt holds coolness. It's a relief at first. You tell yourself it will be a relief in summer too, when the heat becomes brutal. You don't think about how that coolness will turn into cold later. You find or make a roof from whatever you have, some poles, some boards if you're lucky, maybe a layer of brush, then more sod on top like a cap. The roof is always the worry. You stand beneath it and look up and feel your stomach tighten. It's too low, it's too heavy, it's too temporary. You brace it, you add another pole, you press down on the sod and feel how it gives. You imagine snow piling on it, and you force your mind away from the thought because you need to finish before dark. When the house is done, you step back and look at it. It isn't a house the way you once pictured a house. It is a mound with straight edges. It is a cut into the prairie like a scar. From a distance, it almost disappears into the land because it is the land. You feel pride anyway, because it stands, and because you built it, and because it means you won't sleep under open sky. Inside, the floor is dirt. You tamp it down, but it stays uneven. Dust rises when you walk, damp rises when it rains. You lay down what you can: straw, sacks, maybe a board platform if you have enough wood to spare. Wood is too precious to waste on comfort, but you learn fast that lying directly on dirt pulls heat out of you like a thief. You set up a small stove if you have one, or a crude hearth if you don't. You arrange your things close together because the room is small, and closeness means warmth, and warmth means life. That first night, you lie down exhausted. Your muscles burn, your hands throb, your shoulders feel like they've been pried apart. The sod walls hold back the wind better than you expected. The silence is thick. You can hear mice already, scratching somewhere in the walls, drawn by warmth and the smell of food. You try not to think about it. You wrap yourself in blankets that still smell like the road, and you tell yourself you were safe enough. But you can't sleep cleanly. The house makes sounds. The sod settles. The roof shifts. Dirt drops now and then in soft little taps. You hear the wind outside sliding over the mound, and you realize how thin the barrier is between you and that open world. You think about fire and how easy it is to burn a house made of dry grass and roots. You think about rain and how it can soak the walls until they slump. You think about winter because despite the warmth of the day, you have felt the cold hiding in the wind. Days pass. You work more. You break ground for a small garden, though the soil fights you with roots. You gather buffalo chips for fuel if there are no trees. You hunt when you can, and sometimes you come back empty-handed, having walked for hours with nothing but the sound of grass and your own footsteps. You learn the prairie's small signs. You learn that clouds can look harmless and still bring sudden cold. You learn that calm can break in minutes. The season turns, and you feel it in your skin. Mornings come with a sharpness now. The sun still warms you when it rises, but the shade bites. Your breath shows faintly at dawn. You start wearing extra layers without thinking about it. The grass color changes, less green, more yellow, then brown. The wind feels drier some days, carrying dust that gets into everything: your bedding, your food, your eyes. Other days it carries dampness and a smell like wet hay, and those days make your joints ache, even if you're young. You hear talk from other settlers if there are any near enough to visit. You hear of early snows. You hear of storms that come fast. You hear of animals found frozen standing up. You hear of trains stalled, mail delayed. You hear and you nod and you pretend it's just talk because fear is contagious and you can't afford it. But at night, in the sod house, you think about what the wind will do when it turns cruel. You sit by the stove and watch the small flame, and you understand how fragile it is. You feed it little by little because fuel is limited. You listen to the walls. They smell stronger now as the air cools: damp earth, mold starting in hidden spots, old vegetation breaking down. Sometimes you see a bead of water form on the ceiling and drop onto the floor with a soft plop. The house breathes moisture. It holds it. It won't let it go. The first time frost forms inside, it shocks you. You wake to a thin white rim around the corners, like the house has grown teeth. Your blanket feels stiff where it touched the wall. You rub your hands together and feel pain flare in your knuckles. You start keeping water close to the stove so it won't freeze solid. You start sleeping in more clothes, boots sometimes, because the idea of scrambling for them in darkness feels wrong in a way you can't name yet. And the wind keeps practicing. It rises some evenings and hits the house hard enough to make the lamp flame lean sideways. It finds gaps you didn't know were there. It slides cold fingers under the door, through the roof seam, along the floor. You patch and patch, but the prairie always finds a new way in. You begin to understand that you are not building a perfect shelter, you are negotiating for time. Out on the horizon, the sky starts doing things you don't like. Low clouds stack up in layers. The sun sets behind a dirty smear of gray. Sometimes the sunset is red in a way that feels like bruising. You smell snow before you see it. The air changes, turning crisp and metallic, as if the world has been scrubbed raw. Your nostrils flare with it, your skin notices it, even your teeth feel it. You stand outside one late afternoon and look at your sod house, and for a moment it looks like a grave that hasn't been filled yet. The thought is quick and ugly. You shove it down. You tell yourself it's just a house. You built it. You will live in it. You will survive. But as the light fades and the wind picks up again, you feel that pressure of something coming. Not a single storm yet, not the disaster, just the slow approach of a season that does not forgive mistakes. You pull your coat tighter and your shoulders hunch without you deciding to. You smell smoke from your own chimney, thin and weak in the wind. You think about the hook you used to get here, hope, and you realize hope doesn't stop cold. You go back inside. You close the door. The sod walls muffle the world into a low, constant hum. You set your supplies where you can reach them. You check your stove. You count your fuel again in your head. You lie down and stare into the dark ceiling where roots hang like veins. You listen to mice and wind and the soft settling of earth. Outside, the prairie keeps stretching, empty and patient. The first real winter storm is still ahead of you, but your body already knows it's coming. You can feel it in the way your breath catches when the wind shifts. You can feel it in the way your stomach tightens when the light turns gray. You can feel it in the way you start planning, quietly, how you'll move if the house fails, where you'll crawl, what you'll grab, how you'll keep your hands from freezing to metal. You don't say it out loud. You don't need to. You are here now. The land has you, and winter is walking toward your door. You step outside before the sun is fully up, because the cold is easier to work in when it's honest and still. The air bites at the inside of your nose and makes your eyes water, but it's quiet, and quiet is valuable. The prairie at this hour looks flat and dead, the grass stiff with frost, and the dirt hard on top like it's wearing armor. Your boots crunch. That sound carries. Everything carries. Out here, there's nowhere for noise to hide, nowhere for mistakes to hide either. You don't have the luxury of building the kind of house you grew up thinking was normal. No stacked lumber, no clean boards, no shingles, no tight seams. You came for land, but what you really bought was exposure. So, you build from the only thing you can get in bulk without traveling, the ground itself. The first cut into the prairie is always a shock. The sod isn't dirt the way people imagine dirt. It's a mat. It's a living skin stretched over the plains, thick with roots woven together so tightly it holds itself like fabric. When your spade bites into it, it doesn't crumble. It resists. The blade hits that root layer and stops with a dull thud that travels up your arms. You press harder. Your boot sole slips once, and the cold mud kisses the side of your shoe. You shove again, using your weight. The spade slices through with a tearing sound, like ripping cloth. You lift the first strip, and it comes up heavy, dripping black water and smelling like rot and crushed grass. The scent is immediate, earthy, sour, alive, and decaying at the same time. It fills your nose and sticks. This isn't the clean smell of garden soil. This is old ground, layered with years of dead plants and damp, the kind of smell that tells you the land never really dries out deep down. Your hands sink into it when you grab it. It's cold enough to numb your fingertips within minutes. You keep cutting. Long strips first, then blocks. You learn fast that clean edges matter. If you slice sloppy, the blocks won't stack tight, and tight is the difference between wind that's annoying and wind that kills you in your sleep. You measure by eye. You pace off your foundation, trying to make it square even though nothing out here feels square. Your shoulders tighten as you work. Your back starts to complain early, a deep ache that grows with every lift. You feel your breath pushing hard in your chest, and the cold air burns on the way in. By mid-morning, the sun is up, but it doesn't warm like it used to. It's light without kindness. It shows you what you're doing, tearing apart the prairie and stacking it into walls. Your clothing is damp at the collar from sweat, then chilled again when the wind shifts. That swing, hot work, cold air, keeps your skin in a constant state of discomfort. Your hands are either slick with sweat inside gloves or bare and numb because you can't grip with fabric on. Either way, you pay for every hour. The sod blocks pile up around you like crude bricks. They don't look like much until you start laying them. You begin at the corners, because corners give you a sense of control. First row down, grass side out, dirt side in. Or grass side in, dirt side out. People argue about it, but what matters is that the blocks interlock and the seams don't line up. You stagger the joints the way you would with stone. You press each block into place and it squishes slightly, wet and heavy, and the moisture squeezes out along the edges. The wall looks solid, but you know it's only solid because the roots are holding hands across the cut. You smear mud into gaps with your bare fingers. Mud gets under your nails, stains the cracked skin around your knuckles. It dries, then cracks again when you flex. The mud is cold and gritty. It smells like iron. Sometimes you find small worms in it, and you flick them away without thinking, because thinking about them makes you slow. As the wall rises, the inside of your future home becomes a pit of shade. Light falls in from above, but it's muted, filtered through the green of grass and the dark of earth. Even with no roof yet, it feels enclosed. The air inside smells different than outside, less wind, more damp. It smells like a cellar. It makes you imagine what it will feel like when the storms start and you are inside for days, not by choice, but because you can't open the door. You keep building anyway. You have to. You can't stop at a half wall. A half wall is a trap. The hardest part is making a door, not the opening. Anyone can leave a gap. The hard part is making it seal, making it not become a mouth the wind uses to eat your heat. If you have a real door, it's thin and warped from the journey, and it never fits. If you don't, you build one from boards scavenged from crates, from the wagon bed, from anything you can spare. Every piece you sacrifice to the door is something you don't have later for furniture, for repairs, for bracing the roof. You measure and cut and hammer until your arms shake. Nails bend, your fingers bruise. The metal is cold enough that it sticks to damp skin for a heartbeat when you touch it. Then comes the roof. The roof is where your courage gets tested, because the roof is what will be holding thousands of pounds over your head once the snow starts piling. You set poles across the top, spaced close. If you have boards, you lay them. If you don't, you lay brush, grass, anything that will keep dirt from falling straight onto you. Then you start loading sod up there like you're burying the house. Each block you lift above shoulder height feels heavier than the last. Your elbows burn. Your wrists feel like they're full of gravel. You climb up and down, the ladder rung slick with mud. Your boots slip once and your stomach drops. You catch yourself, but your heart pounds hard enough you taste it. You picture a broken leg out here, and the picture isn't dramatic. It's simple. It's just you lying in cold dirt while the weather does what it does. You press sod down over the roof layer, packing it tight. Water seeps out. Dirt crumbles and falls through. It lands on your face and in your hair. It gets into your mouth. You spit and keep going. You know you're making something that will drip when it rains, something that will sweat in humid weather, something that will shed dust on you every time the wind hits. It's still better than open sky. When you finally step inside with the roof on, it feels like walking into a cave you made with your own hands. The sound changes immediately. Outside, the prairie is wide and noisy with wind. Inside, everything is muffled and close. Your own footsteps sound wrong on the dirt floor, too loud, too intimate. You can hear your breathing. You can hear the small ticking sounds of settling sod, roots drying, little clumps of earth falling somewhere behind the wall. The smell is heavy now. Damp earth, grass, mold starting in places you can't see yet. It's the smell of something that is both shelter and decay. You set your few possessions down, and they look out of place against the dirt walls. Fabric, metal, wood, things made elsewhere, now living inside a room made from ground. You run your hand along the wall, and your fingertips come away brown. You try to wipe them on your pants and leave streaks. You realize there's no such thing as clean anymore, not the clean you remember. Everything out here wears a layer of the prairie. You build what you can inside, a rough table, a shelf, a platform to keep bedding off the worst of the floor. You nail boards together, and the sound is sharp in the small space. Each hammer strike feels like it echoes inside your skull. You place the stove, if you have one, on a patch of packed dirt with stones around it. If you don't have a stove, you build a crude hearth, and you already hate it because open fire eats fuel fast and wastes heat. Either way, you watch smoke for signs of backdraft, signs your chimney won't pull right when the wind rises. Smoke in a sod house doesn't just sting, it clings, it stains the ceiling, it lives with you. The first time you light a fire inside, you feel relief, and then you feel fear right behind it. Fire is life, but fire is also the one thing that can kill you fast in here. Sod looks wet now, but when it dries, it becomes tinder in layers. You watch the flame like it's a tool and a threat. You keep a bucket nearby if you can spare the water. Water is another math problem you can't escape. You sleep that night in a half-finished world. The bedding is thin, the air is damp, the fire burns low. The roof above you is close enough you feel like you could reach up and touch it. You can hear mice already, scratching, testing, finding paths through roots. They smell your food. They smell warmth. They don't care that you own this place now. Ownership is paper. They live in soil. Soil is their country. You wake once in the night to a soft rain starting outside. It sounds like someone sprinkling gravel on the roof. Then it changes. The sod begins to drink. You smell the wetness deepen in the walls. A few drops hit your cheek. You wipe them away and they smear dirt across your skin. The dripping isn't steady yet, but it's a warning. You shift your bedding away from the worst spot. You lie back down and listen to water moving through the roof layer, slow and patient. In the morning, the inside of the house feels colder than outside for a while. The sod holds night cold and won't let it go. Your breath shows faint in the dim light. The floor is damp. Your boots pick up mud and track it everywhere, but everywhere is dirt anyway, so it doesn't matter. Except it does. Damp means mold. Damp means rot. Damp means illness. Damp means your blankets never fully dry. Damp means your skin stays chapped and cracked until it bleeds. You spend the day sealing, patching, pressing more mud into gaps, trying to make the house less hungry for heat. You find places where daylight threads through like needles, and you plug them. You find a draft under the door that feels like a blade along your ankles, and you stuff it with rags. You don't have enough rags, so you sacrifice cloth you wanted for something else. You are always trading one need for another. As weeks pass, the sod house becomes familiar in the way a wound becomes familiar. You learn where it drips. You learn which corner stays dampest. You learn the smell of it on dry days and on wet days. On dry days, it smells dusty and sharp, like dried grass crushed into powder. On wet days, it smells like a grave opened and closed again. You learn how the walls sound when the wind hits them. Low thuds, a soft rattle of roots, a faint hiss at the seams. You learn to read the house the way you read the sky, because both can kill you if you ignore what they're saying. You also learn that the sod house is never truly yours. It's borrowed from the land, and the land wants it back. When the sun beats down, the roof bakes and cracks. When the rain comes, the roof swells and sags. Dirt trickles down in a constant slow fall, dusting your table, your bedding, your food. You eat grit without meaning to. You cough sometimes and taste soil. Your hair holds the smell of earth no matter how you wash. And still, when you stand outside at dusk and look at the mound you built, you feel something like stubborn pride. It's not pretty. It's not safe the way a real house is safe. But it's shelter you made with your own hands in a place that offered none. It's a line you drew against weather and emptiness. The problem is, the weather doesn't recognize lines. You start to notice the season tightening. The wind grows steadier, colder. The sky goes dull more often. Nights come earlier. The sun feels weaker even when it shines. You keep working, stacking fuel, counting food, fixing leaks, because you can feel the prairie shifting into its winter posture. Animals move differently. Birds vanish. Even the silence changes. It becomes heavier, like the land is holding its breath. And in your sod house, the damp smell deepens, the walls settle a little more, and the roof, your roof, waits above you like a loaded weight. You lie down at night and stare into the low darkness, and you do the same math again and again. How much fuel you have, how many days of food, how many storms you can survive before something breaks. You tell yourself the house will hold. You tell yourself you built it right. But you can't unfeel the truth you learned the first time the wind hit hard. The prairie doesn't need to knock politely. It just comes in.
You wake before dawn because the cold has learned how to reach you now. It slides under the blanket, up through the dirt floor, down from the ceiling where the sod has gone stiff overnight. It finds your ankles first, then your knees, then settles into your hips like a weight. Your breath comes out white in the dark. Not thick clouds yet, just enough to tell you the temperature inside the house has crossed a line. You lie still for a moment, listening, because moving means exposing skin, and exposing skin means pain. The sod house is quiet in a way that feels wrong. Outside, the wind has died down, but not because it's gone. It's resting. You can tell by the pressure in the air, the way the silence feels tight instead of calm. The walls creak faintly as the frozen moisture inside them shifts. Somewhere in the ceiling, a root snaps with a soft pop. Dirt sprinkles down and lands on your cheek. You brush it away, and it leaves a smear of cold mud. You pull the blanket tighter and feel how little it helps now. The fabric smells like smoke and earth and your own body. It's never fully dry anymore. Damp has soaked into everything you own, and damp steals heat faster than wind ever could. You flex your fingers inside the blanket and feel stiffness in the joints. It takes effort to make a fist. You hold it for a moment until the ache eases, then let go. Eventually, you have to move. You swing your legs off the bedding, and your bare feet touch the dirt floor. The cold hits like a shock. It's not sharp at first. It's dull, numbing, almost gentle for half a second. Then it bites hard enough to make you gasp. You suck air through your teeth and force yourself to stand, because standing gets blood moving, and blood moving means warmth eventually. Your boots are stiff where they dried wrong overnight. You wrestle them on, cursing silently as the leather resists your fingers. The stove is dead cold. You crouch in front of it and feel the chill radiating off the iron. You open it, and the smell inside is old ash and last night's smoke. You strike a match, and the sound feels loud in the small space. The flame flares, then steadies. You coax kindling to life slowly because rushing wastes fuel, and fuel is already becoming the most important thing you own. As the fire catches, a weak heat pushes out into the room. It doesn't chase the cold away so much as negotiate with it. The air near the stove warms, the corners stay bitter. Condensation forms on the ceiling where the warmth meets frozen sod. A few drops fall. They hiss when they land on the stove, then disappear. Others land on the floor and darken the dirt. You breathe in smoke and warmth together. The smoke stings your eyes. It always does when the draft is bad, and the draft is always bad when the air outside is heavy. You crack the door a finger's width to help it pull. Cold air knifes in instantly, sliding across the floor and wrapping your ankles. You shut the door again and accept the smoke. It's better than freezing. When the sun finally rises, it doesn't feel like relief. Light seeps into the sod house through cracks in the small window, turning the interior a dull gray-green. The warmth from the fire helps, but only close. You keep moving, packing gear, checking food stores, counting fuel again, because stillness lets the cold settle into your bones.
Outside, the prairie looks changed. Frost coats the grass so thick it makes the land look dusted with salt. Every step crunches. The sound is loud and brittle. The sky is pale, almost colorless, stretched thin overhead. You smell winter now, clearly, clean and sharp, like metal and ice. It fills your lungs and makes them ache. The wind is light, but it cuts anyway, slipping through your coat seams, finding the damp spots that never fully dry. You walk the perimeter of your sod house, inspecting it like an animal checks its den. The walls have darkened in places where moisture has soaked deeper. A hairline crack runs along one seam, and when you press it, cold air breathes out. You patch it with mud, even though you know mud won't set right in this temperature. It's a habit now. See a problem? Smother it. Hope it holds long enough. The days shorten faster than you expect. Morning comes late, evening comes early, and the light in between feels weak, like it's already tired. You work during daylight and retreat inside as soon as the sun dips because the temperature drops fast after that. There's no gradual cooling. It falls away like a step you didn't see. At night, the cold changes character. It's not just temperature anymore. It becomes presence. You feel it pressing against the walls, pushing through every seam, testing every weakness. The wind comes back after sunset, low and steady, making the sod house hum faintly. The sound vibrates through the walls and into your chest. Sometimes it gusts hard enough to make the lantern flame flicker sideways. You sit still when that happens, listening for any shift in the roof, any sound that means something has moved that shouldn't have. Sleep becomes shallow. You wake often, not always knowing why. Sometimes it's the cold biting through your layers. Sometimes it's a sound, ice forming, dirt falling, a mouse scrambling through the wall. Sometimes it's nothing at all, just a sense that you shouldn't be fully unconscious right now. You learn to sleep in pieces, drifting off and snapping awake, over and over until morning. Your body starts to change in small ways you don't notice at first. Your hands crack and bleed despite wrapping them. Your lips split. Your skin stays red and sore where the cold and damp work together. You eat more when you can, craving fat and starch, but you also start to feel hunger sooner after meals. The cold burns calories whether you're moving or not. You do the math again and again, counting days, adjusting portions, telling yourself you'll make it work. The sod house grows colder inside as the season tightens its grip. The earth walls that once felt cool and comforting now feel like blocks of ice. You can lean your back against them and feel heat drain out of you almost immediately. You stop doing that. You keep to the center of the room, near the stove, near the little island of warmth you can control. One night, you wake to silence so complete it feels like your ears are stuffed with cotton. The wind is gone. The air is dead still. That scares you more than noise ever did. You've learned enough already to know that stillness like this doesn't mean safety. It means the pressure has dropped. It means something is forming.
You step outside before dawn, wrapped in layers, and the cold punches you full in the face. It's deeper than before, heavy and absolute. The stars are painfully bright, sharp points against a black sky. Your breath hangs thick in front of you, and each inhale burns all the way down. The prairie is frozen solid, every blade of grass locked in place. Sound feels swallowed. Even your boots seem quieter. You look to the horizon and see a low smear of cloud, barely visible in the dark. It sits there, unmoving, like a bruise. You know better than to trust that. You've seen how fast the sky can change out here. You stand there longer than you should, feeling the cold creep through your layers, because you want to memorize this moment. The last time the land looks calm before it decides to hurt you. Inside again, you build the fire higher than usual. You let yourself use a little more fuel, even though it gnaws at you to do it. The heat feels good, but it also feels temporary. Everything feels temporary now. You eat slowly, chewing carefully because your jaw aches in the cold. You drink water warmed on the stove, tasting smoke and metal and dirt all at once. As the day goes on, the sky lowers. Clouds roll in thick and gray, pressing down until the prairie feels smaller, boxed in. The light turns flat. Shadows disappear. You lose depth and distance. The horizon blurs until the land and sky bleed together. The wind comes back, this time from a different direction, carrying fine grains of ice that sting your face and get caught in your eyelashes. Snow starts light. It always does. Small flakes, dry and sharp, blowing sideways. They don't stick at first. They just skitter across the frozen ground, whispering as they go. You watch them and feel that familiar, ugly tightening in your gut. You've seen storms before, back where you came from, but this isn't the same. There's nothing to slow it here. No trees, no hills, nothing to break the wind or give you warning. By afternoon, the snow thickens. The wind rises with it, steady and relentless. The temperature drops another step, and you feel it in your teeth, in your knees, in the deep places behind your eyes. You retreat inside earlier than usual, because outside work stops being productive when your hands go numb every few minutes. Inside the sod house, the light dims to a constant twilight. Snow sifts into cracks and melts, then freezes again. The walls sweat. The roof makes new sounds as ice forms and shifts. You feed the stove and sit close, listening, counting the hours until night, even though night doesn't really change anything anymore. That evening, the wind starts to howl. Not the restless wind you've gotten used to, but something louder, more focused. It builds from a low moan into a steady roar that presses against the walls hard enough to make them shiver. You feel it through the floor, through the stool you're sitting on, through your chest. Snow hammers the sod like thrown gravel. The house holds, but you can feel how much it's being asked to take. You eat quickly, because cold food cools you from the inside out. You bank the fire and pile extra fuel nearby so you don't have to cross the room in the dark. You set tools within reach without fully knowing why. Shovel, axe, anything that makes you feel less helpless. You don't undress much before lying down. You keep your boots close. You keep your coat close. You keep everything close.
Sleep comes in broken pieces again, shorter now. You wake to the wind. You wake to the roof creaking. You wake to the sound of snow sliding and piling and pressing. At some point in the night, the temperature drops so suddenly it feels like someone opened a door inside your chest. Your breath fogs thick and constant now. Frost forms along the inside edges of the window. You wipe it away, and your fingers sting sharply. You realize, lying there in the dim, that this is only the beginning. The storm outside is bad, but it isn't the one yet. This is winter testing you, seeing how your shelter responds, seeing how your body reacts. It's learning your weaknesses the way you've been trying to learn the land. You lie awake, listening to the sod house take its first real beating, and you understand something with uncomfortable clarity. Comfort is over. From now on, everything is about endurance. The prairie has turned its face toward you, and it isn't friendly anymore. You wake to the sound of impact. Not a single blow, but thousands of them. Snow and ice hitting the sod house so hard it feels like the world is being shoveled onto you from all directions at once. The wind is screaming now, no longer practicing, no longer testing. It has committed. It drives the storm sideways, forcing snow into every seam, every crack, every weak decision you made while building. The sound is constant, a violent hiss layered with deep, pulsing roars that rise and fall like breath from something massive outside. The air inside the sod house is already wrong. Too cold, too still, too heavy. You draw in a breath and it burns, sharp and metallic, scraping your throat on the way down. Your chest tightens around it. Frost has crept farther across the walls overnight, turning damp earth into something brittle. The ceiling looks lower, though you can't be sure if it actually is or if fear is changing the way you see. You sit up too fast, and dizziness washes over you. Your stomach lurches. You steady yourself with a hand against the wall and feel vibration through your palm, wind pressure shaking the sod, rattling the root bound inside it. Dirt trickles down your sleeve. A clump hits the floor near your boot and breaks apart like dried bread. The stove has gone weak again. The fire didn't last through the night the way you hoped it would. Red embers glow faintly under ash, barely alive. You feed it fuel with stiff fingers, careful not to waste a single piece. When the flame catches, it does so reluctantly, like it resents being forced awake. Smoke backs up immediately, rolling into the room, stinging your eyes and coating your tongue with bitterness. You crack the door without thinking. The wind punches through the opening so hard it nearly knocks you backward. Snow blasts across the floor in a white sheet, spinning and scattering, melting where it hits the warmer dirt and instantly turning the air wetter, colder. You slam the door shut again, heart hammering, breath ragged. Your hands shake. You flex them and feel pain flare along cracked skin. You know better now. The door stays closed unless you're ready to fight what's outside.
The storm doesn't let up. It doesn't pulse or wander the way wind usually does. It stays locked in place, a steady, grinding force. The sound fills your head until it's hard to think. It's loud enough to feel like pressure, like something pushing inward on your ears. You realize how small your shelter really is when the world decides to lean on it. You move through the sod house checking everything, because checking feels like control. You press at the walls. They're firm, but cold as stone. You watch the ceiling carefully. Snow is piling on the roof, fast. You can hear it. A constant, subtle weight being added, layer after layer. Every few minutes there's a soft thump as a mass settles. The support poles creak, long, slow complaints that make your jaw clench. Time stretches. The light outside vanishes completely, swallowed by blowing snow. Inside, the house exists in a dim half-world lit by the stove and the lantern. Shadows jerk and twist along the walls as the flame flickers in the drafty air. You feel like you're underground, entombed, waiting to see if the earth will hold. The cold creeps in anyway. It finds the floor first, sliding along the packed dirt, turning it into a sheet of ice beneath your boots. It climbs your legs slowly, relentlessly. You stomp your feet to keep blood moving, but it only helps for seconds at a time. Your nose goes numb, then your cheeks. Your fingers lose precision, becoming thick, clumsy tools you have to look at to control. You try to eat, because you know you need fuel, but the food tastes wrong. Cold dulls flavor. Smoke dulls flavor. Fear dulls everything. You force it down anyway, chewing slowly, because swallowing burns when your throat is this dry and cold. Your stomach tightens around the food, already asking for more, even as supplies shrink. The house shifts. It's subtle at first, a change in the way the walls sound, a new tone beneath the roar of the storm. You freeze, listening. Another sound follows, a soft crack from above, like a joint popping. Then a longer groan, drawn out, strained. Your eyes snap to the ceiling. Fine dust sifts down in a steady curtain. You back away instinctively, heart racing, every muscle coiled. The roof sags. Not much, maybe an inch, maybe less, but you see it, you feel it. The shape of the room changes just enough to steal the air from your lungs. Snow is winning. The weight is becoming more than the sod and poles were ever meant to hold. You grab the shovel without thinking and ram it into the door, trying to clear a path. The blade bites into packed snow immediately, hitting resistance so solid it feels like a wall. You dig hard, each stroke sending shock up your arms. Snow pours in around the shovel shaft, melting on contact, soaking your sleeves. The cold water runs down your skin and steals what little warmth you have left. The wind fights you. It slams against the door, against your body, against the shovel itself. Every time you clear a small space, more snow fills it instantly. Your breath comes in gasps now, fogging the tiny space you've made. Your shoulders burn. Your fingers lose precision, becoming thick, clumsy tools you have to look at to control.
You stop. Not because you're done, but because you're smart enough to know when you're wasting strength. You shove the snow back into place as best you can and seal the door again, packing the edges with cloth and mud. It feels wrong, closing yourself in, but you know the truth. Outside right now is not survival. It's exposure and blindness and ice. You retreat to the center of the sod house, dragging extra bedding and fuel closer to the stove. You feed the fire again and watch the flames struggle, leaning sideways under the pressure of the storm. The heat it throws off is uneven, weak, but it's all you have. You crouch close, knees pulled to your chest, arms wrapped around yourself, and wait. Hours pass, or minutes. Time stops behaving normally. The storm doesn't change, it just continues. The wind never drops below a roar. Snow keeps hitting the walls. The roof keeps taking weight. You hear ice forming, cracking, reforming. You hear the house settling again and again, each sound sending a spike of fear through your chest. Your body starts to fail in small ways. Shivering becomes violent, uncontrollable. Your jaw aches from clenching. Your thoughts loop, circling the same fears without resolution. You imagine the roof giving way all at once, a collapse that pins you under frozen sod and snow. You imagine suffocating, lungs filling with powdery cold. You imagine being found months later, or never. At some point, exhaustion takes over. Not sleep, something worse, a dulling. Your movements slow, your reactions lag. You sit still longer than you should, staring into the fire, feeling warmth fade from your extremities. Your hands feel far away, your feet feel like blocks of wood. That scares you more than the storm. You force yourself to move again. You stand, pace, stomp, swing your arms. The effort feels enormous. Each step takes will. You check the roof supports again, pressing against them, listening. They hold, barely. You consider propping them further, but any extra material you have is weak, splintered, already under strain. Adding weight inside might make things worse. Another crack echoes from above, louder this time. The ceiling dips again, just slightly. Snow dust rains down. You choke on it, coughing hard, lungs protesting. Panic surges hot and sharp through your chest. You grab your coat, your boots, your few most important things, and pile them together near the center of the room. If the roof goes, you want them close. If you have to dig, you want tools close. If you have to run, you want everything within reach. The storm rages on. You feel cut off from the world entirely now. No sound but wind and impact. No light but fire and shadow. No sense of direction. The prairie outside might as well not exist. There is only this room and the pressure bearing down on it. At some point, hours into the storm, you hear something new. A deep, low creaking that builds slowly, stretching out until it makes your teeth ache. The sound comes from the roof supports, wood and sod straining together. You hold your breath without realizing it. Your heart pounds so hard it makes you dizzy. Then the sound stops,
Not because the danger has passed, but because the structure has settled into a new position. The ceiling is lower now. You can see it clearly. The walls lean inward slightly. The space has shrunk. The house has taken damage it can't undo. You slump back down near the stove, legs trembling. The fire is low again. You feed it automatically, hands moving from memory rather than thought. You stare at the flame and feel something crack inside you. Not panic, not fear, but certainty. This storm is not passing quickly. This is not a bad night or a rough day. This is the kind of storm people talk about later in quiet voices, if they survive it at all. This is the kind of winter that empties houses and fills graves. This is the disaster you've been sensing since the first frost, since the first crack in the wall, since the first time the wind hit your sawed house hard enough to make you flinch. You press your back against the packed earth and close your eyes, not to sleep, but to endure. The cold gnaws, the wind howls, the roof presses down inch by inch. You are trapped now, not just by snow, but by the land itself. And the prairie is not done with you yet. You wake because your stomach hurts. Not the sharp pain of an empty belly, not yet. This is a deeper ache, low and constant, like something inside you is tightening slowly, testing how much it can take. It pulls your attention inward even before the cold does. When you open your eyes, the sod house is dim and gray, the light outside filtered through snow-packed cracks and a sky you can't see anymore. The storm hasn't ended. It hasn't even weakened. The wind still roars, steady and brutal, as if it has no concept of time. The fire is barely alive. Again. You sit up and the room sways, just a little, enough to make you pause. You plant your hand on the dirt floor and wait for the dizziness to pass. Your fingers feel thick and clumsy, like they belong to someone else. You flex them slowly. There's pain, but it's distant, muffled. That worries you. Pain is supposed to be sharp. Pain is supposed to demand attention. You feed the stove with care, breaking fuel smaller than you used to, stretching every piece. When the flame catches, it throws off a weak, uneven heat. You hover close, absorbing it greedily, turning your hands like meat over a spit. The warmth barely reaches past your wrists. The rest of you stays cold, a deep, bone-level cold that doesn't respond anymore. You look at your food stores. They look back smaller than they should. You know you've been rationing. You know you've been careful. But storms like this eat supplies faster than plans account for. You burn more fuel, you eat more just to keep moving, you drink more warm water to trick your body into feeling fed. Still, the math has shifted. What once looked like weeks now looks like days. What once felt manageable now feels thin. You open a sack and scoop out flour. The smell is faint, dusty. You mix it with water until it becomes a paste barely thick enough to swallow. No salt today. Salt makes you thirsty, and thirst is dangerous now. You cook it slowly, watching it bubble weakly in the pan. The smell is bland, almost nothing. When you eat, it coats your mouth and throat like glue. It fills space, not need. Your stomach accepts it reluctantly. Hunger doesn't go away. It just changes shape. It sharpens your thoughts. It makes you think about food constantly, even when there's nothing left to decide. You remember meals from before, the weight of bread in your hand, the smell of meat cooking, the feeling of being full without planning for it. Those memories come uninvited and stay too long. You push them aside because they don't help. The storm keeps you sealed in. The door is buried so deeply now that you can't tell where the outside begins. Snow presses against the walls with enough force that you feel it when you lean close, a cold, solid resistance. The window is useless, just a pale blur of white and gray. There is no horizon anymore, no direction. The prairie has erased itself.
time slips. You try to mark it by meals, by feeding the stove, by the ache in your body, but it blurs anyway. Day and night are nearly the same inside the sod house. The lantern light never feels fully different from daylight. Sleep comes in shallow stretches, broken by cold, by hunger cramps, by the constant noise of the wind grinding against the walls. Your body starts to conserve itself. You notice it when standing feels harder than it should, when you catch yourself sitting longer, moving slower, choosing stillness not because it's warm, but because it costs less. You notice it when your thoughts slow, when decisions take effort, when even worry feels heavy. Hunger does that. It dulls urgency. It makes you quiet. That scares you enough to force movement. You pace the room, small circles around the stove. Your breath comes fast, then slows again. Your legs feel weak, hollow. You stop and lean against the support post and feel the cold drain into your back immediately. You step away. You've learned that lesson. Your mouth tastes wrong, sour, metallic. You swallow and it doesn't help. Your tongue feels thick. You drink water warmed just enough to not shock your teeth. It settles heavily in your stomach, sloshing, empty of comfort. Your body wants more, and it wants it now, not later, not rationally.
The wind never lets you forget where you are. It presses and howls and hammers without pause. Snow continues to pile on the roof, though you can't see it. You can hear it. You can feel the weight adding itself inch by inch. The ceiling has dropped again, subtly but undeniably. You have to duck now where you didn't before. The room is shrinking, or maybe you are. At some point you realize you haven't thought about rescue in a long time, not because you don't want it, but because hunger and cold have pushed it out. Survival has narrowed your world to what's within arm's reach. Stove, food, bedding, roof. You are no longer planning for after. You are planning for next hour. When you sleep, your dreams change. Food appears constantly, real food, thick bread, fat dripping from meat, steaming bowls you can smell before you see them. In the dream, you eat fast, desperate, stuffing your mouth until your jaw aches. You wake with your mouth open, tongue dry, stomach twisting painfully as it realizes the truth. The disappointment hits harder than the hunger itself. You lie there breathing shallowly, waiting for the ache to settle enough that you can move again. At some point, maybe the third or fourth day of the storm, you start feeling cold differently. The sharp edges are gone. Instead, there's a spreading numbness, especially in your feet and hands. You rub them hard, but sensation comes back slowly, reluctantly. Your toes feel swollen and distant. You flex them inside your boots just to prove they still work. Your thoughts drift when you sit still too long. Not sleep, something else, a soft slipping away. Images intrude that don't belong. You hear things in the wind that almost sound like structure, like voices or footsteps. You tell yourself it's nothing. You've heard how storms do this, how sound stretches and folds. Still, you listen harder than you mean to. You try to distract yourself by fixing small things. You pack mud into cracks again. You shift bedding to catch drips. You rearrange supplies that don't need rearranging. Your hands shake while you work, partly from cold, partly from weakness. When you drop something, the effort it takes to bend down and pick it up feels excessive, like lifting a weight you don't have strength for. You rest more often. At first, you justify it. Conserving energy is smart. Movement burns calories you can't replace. But rest turns into stillness, and stillness turns into hours passing unnoticed. You snap back to awareness, sometimes with a jolt of fear, realizing you've been staring at nothing, mind empty, body slack. You forced yourself to eat again, though the portion is smaller than yesterday. You tell yourself you'll make it up later. Later is becoming a fragile idea.
The house smells worse now. Damp earth, mold, smoke, and something else. Something faintly sweet and wrong. You recognize it with a tightening in your chest. It's the smell of things not staying as they should. Food spoiling, clothing staying wet too long, a human body living in cold and darkness without enough fuel. You catch yourself smelling your own skin, your clothes, checking for changes you don't want to name. The storm outside does not break. If anything, it intensifies. The wind shifts direction and finds new seams. Snow pushes in through places that held before. You stuff them tighter, but your hands are clumsy now and your fixes are worse. Mud freezes before it sets. Cloth stiffens. Everything becomes temporary, faster. Your head aches constantly, a dull pressure behind your eyes. Light hurts more than it should. Sound feels amplified, each crack and groan from the roof punching into your skull. You close your eyes often, pressing your fingers against them until spots bloom in the darkness. Hunger makes you irritable with yourself. You snap internally at small failures. You replay decisions, why you didn't store more, why you didn't build thicker walls, why you came at all. Those thoughts spiral quickly, and you have to cut them off because they lead nowhere useful. Regret burns energy too. At some point, you try to dig again. You shoulder into the door with the shovel, hacking at packed snow from the inside. The blade meets resistance immediately, frozen solid. You chip and pry, each movement slow and exhausting. Snow pours in as you open even a small gap, blasting your face with cold and stealing what little heat you have left. The wind howls through the opening like it's been waiting. You give up quickly this time, not because it's impossible, but because you know you don't have the strength to finish. You reseal the door and slump back against the wall, breathing hard, chest tight. The realization sits heavy. Effort now has consequences later, and later is coming fast. You begin to think of hunger as an enemy with patience. It doesn't rush you. It doesn't panic. It just stays. It waits for you to weaken enough that cold and fear can finish the work. You feel it working on you, hour by hour, stealing sharpness, stealing will, stealing warmth from the inside out. That night, or what you think is night, you wake convinced someone is in the room with you.
You feel it before you see anything. A pressure, a sense of presence near the edge of the light. Your heart slams hard against your ribs. You sit up too fast and nearly black out. You stare into the shadows beyond the stove's glow, breath held, ears straining. There's nothing there. Just walls, just dirt, just hanging roots and drifting dust. You exhale slowly, shakily, and realize your hands are shaking hard enough that your teeth chatter in response. You wrap your arms around yourself and rock slightly without meaning to. The movement feels soothing. You let it continue longer than you should. When you finally settle, hunger hits again, sharp this time, twisting hard enough to make you groan quietly. You curl inward, pressing your fist against your stomach like that might help. Your body is eating itself now. You can feel it. There's a hollow weakness in your limbs, a trembling that doesn't stop when you rest. You think about eating more. You think about how much is left. You think about storms that can last weeks out here. You choose to eat less. The decision feels logical and cruel at the same time. You measure out a portion so small it barely feels worth cooking. You force it down anyway, telling yourself this is discipline, this is survival. Your body disagrees. It sends waves of craving so intense they feel like pain. When you lie back down, you don't fully sleep. You drift in and out, caught between awareness and something softer. The wind blends with imagined sounds. The walls seem to breathe. At one point, you're certain you smell cooked meat again, rich and heavy, and it takes a long moment to accept that it isn't real. You press your face into the blanket and breathe the familiar, sour smell of damp cloth instead. Hunger has moved in with you now. It sits beside the cold and the fear and the noise, quiet but constant.
It sharpens the storm, magnifies the dark, stretches the hours until they feel endless. It whispers mistakes and memories and false comforts when you're weakest. And the worst part, the part you don't want to admit even to yourself, is that some small part of you is starting to go numb enough that the idea of giving in doesn't feel impossible anymore. You shake that thought away hard, forcing your eyes open, forcing movement, forcing awareness. Because you are still alive. Because the storm is still raging.
And because hunger, like winter, is not finished with you yet. You wake to a silence that feels artificial. The wind is still there. You can hear it if you focus, but something has shifted. The sound has flattened, stretched thin, like it's been pushed farther away. It's no longer right outside the walls. It's everywhere at once, pressing in from all directions, steady and unbroken. That kind of sound erases edges. It makes the sod house feel smaller, closer, like the walls have leaned inward during the night. The fire is out. Not dying, not low. Out. The stove is a cold black shape now, radiating nothing. You stare at it longer than you should, because relighting it means moving, and moving means spending energy you no longer trust yourself to have. Your breath fogs thick in the air. The inside of the house is almost the same temperature as outside now. The sod has fully surrendered its stored warmth. You sit up slowly. Your body protests in pieces, knees first, then hips, then your spine, stiff and sore like it's been packed in ice. You pause halfway upright as a wave of dizziness washes over you, darker and heavier than before. For a moment, the room tilts, and you're sure you're going to pass out. You hold still and breathe shallow until it eases. When you reach for kindling, your fingers fumble. They don't close right away. You watch them, detached, waiting for the signal to catch up. That delay scares you. You strike a match. It flares bright, too bright, and the light stabs behind your eyes. You blink hard, tears forming instantly in the cold. The flame gutters in the thick, stale air, but catches eventually. Smoke fills the room fast. Without the wind pulling properly through the chimney, it has nowhere to go. It rolls low and gray, clinging to the ceiling, sliding down the walls. You cough, sharp and dry. Your throat feels scraped raw. You consider opening the door, then dismiss it immediately. You know what's out there. You've learned that lesson already. You let the smoke stay. The fire takes longer to warm than it used to. Or maybe you're weaker. It's hard to tell now. Heat seeps out in a narrow circle that barely reaches your knees. You crouch close, hugging yourself, feeling ridiculous and animal and small. Your teeth chatter uncontrollably for several minutes before it slows. The light inside the sod house never really changes anymore. Day used to mean something. Now it's just a slightly paler version of dark. The window is completely blocked with snow and ice. You scrape at it from the inside once just to see, and manage to clear a small patch. All you see is white. No texture, no direction, just brightness without detail. You stop scraping. It doesn't help. Darkness starts behaving differently when it lasts this long. It presses inward. It settles behind your eyes. Even with the lantern lit, the corners of the room feel deeper than they should. Shadows don't stay where you expect them to. They stretch when the flame flickers, then pull back slowly like they're alive and patient. You find yourself staring into them longer than makes sense, waiting for something to move. You tell yourself you're just tired, but tired doesn't explain the way the silence between wind gusts feels loaded, like something is about to speak. You eat again, though calling it a meal feels dishonest. The portion is small enough that it barely interrupts the ache in your stomach.
You chew carefully, slowly, as if pacing might trick your body into feeling satisfied. It doesn't work. Hunger is no longer sharp. It's dull and constant, a pressure that never lifts, like a fist held gently but firmly inside you. Afterward, you feel worse. Your body seems to realize it's not getting what it needs and responds by slowing everything down. Your hands tremble when you try to do fine work. Your legs feel heavy even when you're sitting. You rest your head back against the wall for just a second and almost don't lift it again. When you do, you realize you've lost track of time. You don't know how long you were still, minutes, an hour. The fire is lower again. The lantern flame has burned down. Panic flares briefly, then fades into something softer, more dangerous, resignation. You push yourself to move because you know that softness leads somewhere you can't afford to go. The sod house makes more noise now. Not structural noises, those you recognize, but smaller sounds. Scratching, shifting, tiny movements inside the walls. Mice, you tell yourself, just mice. But the sound seems closer than before. It travels along the walls and ceiling, following no clear path. You try to track it with your eyes, then stop because the effort makes your head ache. You hear something else, too, a low tone just at the edge of hearing. At first you think it's the wind changing pitch, but it doesn't behave like wind. It doesn't rise and fall naturally. It stays steady, humming faintly like a distant voice holding one long note. You tilt your head, listening. The sound seems to move when you do, never staying in one place long enough to pinpoint. You rub your eyes hard until spots bloom. When you open them again, the sound is gone. You tell yourself you imagined it. Hunger does that. Cold does that. Isolation does that. You repeat the explanation until it settles into something that feels true enough.
But you don't turn your back to the shadows anymore. The ceiling has dropped further. You know it has. You don't need to measure. You can feel it in the way the room presses down, in the way your shoulders hunch without you deciding to. The roof supports bow slightly now, just enough to catch your eye every time you look up. Snow continues to add itself to the weight above you, silent and relentless. You consider digging again, just to relieve pressure. The thought exhausts you. You imagine the effort, swinging the shovel, fighting the packed snow, the wind stealing your breath, and your body reacts with a wave of weakness so strong it makes you sit down hard. The floor is colder than you expect. You don't get up right away. Sitting turns into waiting. Waiting turns into drifting. Your thoughts loosen their grip. They wander without structure. Memories surface uninvited, out of order. A face you haven't thought about in years. A room from childhood. The smell of food cooking somewhere warm. These images don't feel comforting anymore. They feel sharp, like reminders of something you've been cut off from permanently. At some point, you become aware of movement that isn't yours. You don't see it at first. You feel it. A change in the air, a subtle pressure shift near the edge of your awareness. You look up slowly, heart rate increasing, breath shallow. The shadows along the far wall seem darker than before, thicker, pooled in a way that doesn't match the lantern light. You stare. The longer you stare, the more certain you become that something is wrong. Not present, wrong. The shadow stretches upward, thinning, almost like a human shape trying to stand without fully committing to it. Your pulse pounds in your ears. You don't move. You don't breathe. Then the lantern flickers. The shadow collapses back into nothing. You sag forward with a sharp exhale, muscles trembling. Your chest aches like you've been holding tension there for hours. You press a hand to your face and feel dampness, sweat despite the cold, or tears. You can't tell which.
You laugh once, quietly. The sound surprises you. It's thin and cracked, not quite right. You stop immediately, embarrassed even though no one is there to hear it. Laughter feels inappropriate now, like tempting something. You check the fire again, feed it again. Everything is again now. The same motions, the same routines, repeated until they lose meaning. Survival has narrowed your world to maintenance. Keep the fire alive. Keep yourself alive. Don't think beyond that. The darkness keeps pressing. You realize you haven't spoken out loud in days. When you test your voice, it comes out hoarse and unfamiliar. The sound startles you enough that you don't try again. Silence feels safer. Silence feels controlled. But silence has its own weight. It amplifies every sound your body makes. Your breathing, your swallowing, the dull thud of your heartbeat. It makes you aware of how alone you are in a way that isn't emotional so much as physical. There is no one else to interrupt your thoughts, to break the loops they fall into. No one to confirm what's real and what isn't. You begin to doubt small things. Did the ceiling drop again? Or are you imagining it? Is the room darker? Or are your eyes adjusting poorly? Did you hear footsteps just now? Or was it the house settling? Each question hangs unanswered, and the uncertainty gnaws at you more than fear ever did. Later, much later, you notice your hands have gone still in your lap. You don't remember deciding to stop moving them. They're cold, pale, fingers slightly curled. You stare at them with distant curiosity. They look like hands, but they don't feel like yours. You flex them slowly. The movement is delayed, like they're underwater. You force yourself to stand. The effort sends a rush of blood to your head that nearly blacks out your vision. You grab a support post and cling to it until the room steadies. Your legs shake violently, muscles firing without coordination. You wait for the strength to return. It does, but thinner than before. The house creaks again. A long, low sound, deeper than the others. You freeze, listening. Snow shifts on the roof. Something settles. Dust rains down in a slow curtain, coating your hair, your shoulders, the floor. You cough weakly. You whisper, without realizing it.
You clamp your mouth shut immediately, heart racing. The idea that you spoke, to the house, to the dark, to nothing, filled you with a sudden, irrational dread. You press your lips together until they hurt. You are not ready to admit what this place is doing to you. That comes later. For now, you retreat inward. You sit close to the fire and let your eyes unfocus. You watch the flame dance and shift, the only thing in the room that behaves predictably. Even it looks strange sometimes, stretching too tall, bending at odd angles. You blink hard whenever that happens. You start counting things. Firewood pieces, cracks in the wall, support posts, your breaths. Counting gives your mind something solid to hold on to. When you lose track, you start over. The numbers blur eventually, but the act keeps you anchored. Sleep comes again, shallow and uneasy. This time, when you dream, you don't see food. You see people. They stand just outside the door, shapes pressed against the snow-packed barrier. You can't see their faces clearly, but you know them. Friends, neighbors, someone you recognize. They're silent, waiting. You try to call out, but your mouth won't open. When you reach for the door, your hands sink into the wood like it's soft, like it's rotting away. You wake gasping, heart pounding, the image lingering too vividly to dismiss. The house is the same, empty, silent. The fire still burns, but something has shifted inside you. The darkness is no longer just outside or around you. It's in your head now, pooling in quiet corners, waiting for moments when you're too tired or too hungry to fight it. The cold has slowed your body. Hunger has thinned your strength. Now isolation is doing its work, eroding certainty, blurring edges, softening the boundary between what's real and what's imagined. You are still alive, but you are no longer fully alone with just the storm. Your own mind has started to turn against you. You wake already exhausted. Not the kind of exhaustion that comes from work or missed sleep, but a deeper one, heavy and settled, like your body has accepted that this is how it feels now. Cold, weak, hollow. You don't remember drifting off this time. There is no clear line between sleeping and waking anymore. Your eyes open and you're already alert, already tense, already listening. The fire is still alive, somehow, low, unsteady. The flame bends and shivers as if it's struggling to remember what it's supposed to do. You stare at it longer than necessary, measuring your own condition by how long it takes to feel its heat. Too long, much too long. The sod house feels unfamiliar this morning. Not changed, unfamiliar. The walls seem farther apart and closer at the same time. The ceiling looks warped, bowed in ways you don't remember. You tell yourself the light is wrong, that hunger and smoke and fatigue are playing tricks. Still, you scan the room carefully, as if you expect to find something new sitting where it shouldn't be. Your stomach tightens again, sharper today. Hunger has lost all subtlety. It claws now, twisting hard enough to make you curl forward slightly when you sit up. You breathe through it, slow and shallow, waiting for the wave to pass. It doesn't pass. It just settles lower, deeper. You eat. The portion is almost insulting, scraps you would have fed to animals once, stretched and diluted into something technically edible. You chew slowly, counting each motion, trying to trick your body into believing this is enough. It isn't. You swallow anyway. Your stomach cramps in response, angry, betrayed. You feel lightheaded afterward. A faint buzzing fills your ears, like insects trapped inside your skull. You sit very still until it fades. When you finally move again, it's with care, every action deliberate, measured, as if sudden motion might cause something inside you to break. The wind outside has changed. It's not as loud as before, but it's worse. It pulses now, gusts slamming the sod house in irregular waves. Each impact sends a vibration through the walls and floor, through your bones. Snow continues to grind against the roof, adding weight you can feel, even if you can't see it. The house answers with low groans, tired sounds that carry resignation rather than resistance. You try to focus on tasks. You check the walls. You press mud into cracks that freeze almost immediately. You adjust the bedding again, chasing warmth that never stays where you put it. You feed the fire. Always the fire. The routine keeps you anchored, but barely. Your hands shake constantly now, not just from cold, but from weakness. The effort it takes to grip tools surprises you every time. Then you hear it.
A sound that doesn't fit. At first, it blends with the wind, a rise and fall that could almost be mistaken for a gust funneling through a narrow space. You ignore it, because ignoring things has become a survival skill. But the sound repeats, and this time it has rhythm. A pause, then another rise. Too measured, too deliberate. You stop moving. The sound seems to come from outside, somewhere beyond the buried door. You hold your breath and listen harder. Your heart thumps slow and heavy in your chest. The sound comes again, soft, distant, stretched thin by snow and wind, but unmistakable now. Footsteps. The idea hits you like a shock. Your first reaction isn't relief, it's fear. Real, immediate, chest-tightening fear. Because footsteps mean people, and people mean questions you're not sure you can answer. They mean effort. They mean opening the door. They mean exposure. You crawl closer to the door on stiff knees, careful not to make noise, and press your ear against the wood. The cold seeps instantly into your skin. You barely feel it. Your attention is locked on the sound. Another step, then another. They're slow, heavy, as if whoever is out there is struggling, dragging themselves through deep snow.
You imagine shapes beyond the door. Neighbors, travelers, someone lost. The images come fast and vivid, too vivid. Your pulse races, your mouth goes dry. You reach for the latch. Then the sound stops. Silence rushes in, thick and suffocating. The wind fills the gap immediately, roaring louder, mocking you. You wait, frozen, ears still pressed to the door. Seconds stretch. Your muscles burn from holding position. No more footsteps come. You pull back slowly. Your breathing is shallow now. Your hands tremble so badly you have to press them together to stop them from rattling against your knees. You tell yourself it was the wind, snow shifting, ice breaking. You repeat it until the words lose meaning. But the certainty lingers. Later, how much later you can't tell, you hear voices. Not loud, not clear, just shapes of sound woven into the wind, a rise and fall that mimics speech. Your head snaps up immediately, your chest tightens painfully. You stand too fast and nearly fall, catching yourself on the support post with a weak grunt. The voices seem to come from the window. You stagger toward it and scrape away frost and packed snow with numb fingers, desperate. You clear a small hole again, enough to see light. Still nothing but white. Still no shapes, no movement. The voices fade as you strain to hear them, dissolving back into the storm like they were never there. You laugh softly, then stop. The sound feels wrong in your throat. Your thoughts start slipping more often now. You lose track of what you were doing mid-motion. You forget where you set things you were holding seconds earlier. You sit down intending to rest briefly and come back to awareness with the fire low and no memory of time passing. It's like pieces of your day are being quietly removed, and you don't notice until afterward. The sod house seems occupied. Not physically, something subtler. The air feels crowded. Sounds echo strangely, bending in ways that don't make sense. You swear you feel movement at the edge of your vision constantly, something darting just out of sight. Every time you turn your head, there's nothing there. You try not to turn your head too much. Hunger has sharpened into something else now. It's no longer just need, it's obsession. Food thoughts intrude constantly, uninvited, detailed enough to hurt. You imagine textures, temperatures, smells so clearly they make your mouth flood with saliva. You press your tongue to the roof of your mouth to stop it. Your stomach tightens violently, and for a moment you feel genuinely nauseous. You retch once, dry and painful. Nothing comes up. Afterward, your throat burns and your eyes water. The effort leaves you shaking, drained. You wipe your mouth with the back of your hand and notice how thin your wrist looks. The bone stands out sharply under skin that feels loose. You stare at it longer than you should, disturbed by how unfamiliar your own body has become. The voices return in the afternoon. This time, they're closer. You hear your name. There's no mistaking it. The sound cuts cleanly through the wind, sharp enough to make your breath catch. You freeze where you stand, heart slamming hard enough to make you dizzy. The voice is familiar, too familiar. It sounds like someone you know, someone you trust. You take a step toward the door before you realize you're moving. Your hand is on the latch when doubt finally claws its way back in. The storm is still raging. No one could stand out there long enough to call your name like that. You know this. You know it logically. The knowledge feels thin, fragile, barely strong enough to hold you in place. The voice calls again. Your name, stretched and distorted by the wind, but unmistakable. It sounds tired. It sounds cold. It sounds like it needs you. Your chest aches with something dangerously close to hope. You bite down hard on the inside of your cheek until pain flares sharp and real. Blood fills your mouth, metallic and warm. The sudden sensation snaps something back into place. The voice fades instantly, swallowed by the wind. You sag back against the wall, breathing hard, mouth full of blood, shaking from head to toe. You understand now.
This is what hunger and cold and isolation do together. They don't just weaken the body, they start rewriting reality. They turn the storm into a stage and your mind into an unreliable narrator. They offer comfort in the shape of lies. That knowledge doesn't protect you the way you want it to, because knowing something isn't real doesn't stop it from feeling real. As evening, if it is evening, settles in, the hallucinations grow bolder. Shadows gather more deliberately. You see shapes in them that don't dissolve immediately when you look. Faces, figures, familiar outlines that stand just a moment too long before breaking apart. You stop trusting your eyes. You close them often, resting your forehead against your knees, breathing slowly, focusing on the feel of the floor beneath you, the heat of the fire, the sound of your own breath, grounding yourself. That's what you call it, even though the ground itself feels like an enemy now. The house creaks again, louder than before. A deep, settling groan runs through the walls. Dust rains down steadily, coating everything in a fine layer of earth. You cough weakly, lungs protesting. The roof feels closer still. You imagine it pressing down, inch by inch, the way hunger presses inward, the way darkness presses on your thoughts. At some point, you become convinced someone is sitting across from you. You feel their presence clearly, weight, shape, attention directed toward you. You keep your eyes closed, afraid of what you might see if you open them. Your heart pounds erratically. Sweat beads on your skin despite the cold.
You don't hear them breathe. That's what finally breaks the spell. You open your eyes. The space across from you is empty. Just dirt, just shadow, just the same battered interior you've been staring at for days. Relief floods you so suddenly it leaves you dizzy. You slump sideways, barely catching yourself before you hit the floor. You whisper to yourself again without meaning to. This time, you don't even remember what you said. The realization settles heavy. You are no longer a reliable witness to your own experience. The storm outside has cut you off from the world, but the real danger now is inside. Your mind is looking for patterns, for meaning, for connection, anything to break the isolation. It doesn't care whether those things are real. Night falls, or something like it. The fire burns low. You don't feed it as often now, not because you shouldn't, because the effort feels enormous and some part of you is starting to measure actions not by necessity, but by whether you can bear them. You huddle in on yourself, wrapped in everything you own, rocking slightly. The movement soothes you. It quiets the thoughts. You let it continue. Voices murmur in the wind again, but you don't look up this time. You don't listen closely. You let them wash over you, meaningless noise, because engaging with them feels too dangerous. Your dreams begin before you're fully asleep. You see the prairie without snow, green and open, stretching endlessly. People walk toward you across it, clear and solid. They smile, they wave. You try to move, but your legs won't respond. The grass rises around you, climbing your body, turning into sod, into walls. The sky darkens. The people fade. You wake gasping, tangled in blankets, heart racing. The storm is still there. The house still holds. You are still alive. But you are seeing faces in the snow now, faces that don't exist, voices that know your name, shadows that feel like company. Hunger has hollowed you, cold has slowed you, isolation has cracked the last layer of certainty you had left. And the most dangerous thing of all is that some part of you is starting to welcome the hallucinations, because they mean you aren't alone. And out here, alone is the thing most likely to kill you. You wake to the sound of breathing that is not yours. It's slow, wet, uneven. Each inhale drags, each exhale rattles, like air being pulled through something damaged. For a long moment you don't move.
You don't open your eyes. You lie perfectly still, heart pounding so hard it hurts, trying to decide whether the sound is real or another lie your mind is telling you. The breathing continues. You open your eyes. The sod house looks the same, low ceiling, dirt walls, weak firelight, but the air feels heavier, crowded in a way it hasn't before. The sound is coming from the far side of the room. You sit up slowly, joints protesting, vision blurring at the edges. Your stomach drops as you focus. There is someone there. Not a shadow, not a trick of light, a body. They are lying on the floor where the wall meets the dirt, half curled, half slumped, wrapped in layers stiff with frost and damp. Their face is grayish, lips tinged blue, eyes half open but unfocused. Each breath pulls shallow and labored, chest barely rising. You recognize them immediately. A neighbor, someone who built their sod house close enough that you once waved at each other across the prairie, someone you shared a few words with before winter closed in. You don't remember them coming in. The realization sends a jolt of panic through you. The door is still sealed. Snow still blocks it solid. You search your memory for the moment they arrived. Did you open the door? Did they stumble in while you were drifting? Did you imagine them before and now they're real? It doesn't matter. They are here now. You crawl toward them, movements clumsy and slow, knees aching as they hit the frozen dirt. Up close, the smell hits you first. Cold sweat, smoke, something sour beneath it. Illness, the smell of a body that has been losing its fight for too long. Their skin is cold when you touch it, colder than yours, and dry in some places, clammy in others. You call their name without thinking. Your voice comes out cracked and weak, barely louder than a whisper. There is no response. The breathing stutters, pauses, then resumes with effort. You press your ear close to their chest and hear a faint, irregular heartbeat. It's there, but it's wrong. Too slow, too uneven. You look at your supplies. You already know the answer. There isn't enough.
Not enough food, not enough fuel, not enough warmth, not enough of you left to give. Taking them in, if you did take them in, has just cut your own chances in half. The thought lands with sickening clarity. You hate yourself for thinking it. You hate the land more for forcing you to. You drag them closer to the stove, leaving a faint smear on the dirt floor where their body slides. You pile what blankets you can spare over them, even though sparing them means you will be colder. You feed the fire more than you should. The flames flare briefly, then settle into their weak, trembling burn. You try to get them to drink. You lift their head carefully, supporting the weight, and bring a cup of warm water to their lips. Their mouth opens slightly, but they can't swallow. Water spills down their chin, soaking into the cloth at their collar. You wipe it away, hands shaking, and try again more slowly. This time, a little goes down, but it triggers a fit of coughing that racks their whole body. The coughing stops abruptly. Their eyes flutter, then fix on nothing. The breathing slows. You freeze, watching, counting the seconds between breaths. One passes, then another, then another. Too many. You lean closer, heart pounding, waiting for the next inhale. It comes, but barely. You sit back on your heels, chest tight, feeling something inside you sag. You don't know how long you stay like that, crouched beside them, watching a life thin itself out in front of you. The storm roars outside, indifferent. Snow continues to pile on the roof. The house creaks under the weight, but you barely notice. Your entire world has narrowed to the rise and fall of their chest. It stops. You don't realize it at first. You're still waiting, still counting, still expecting the next breath. When it doesn't come, your mind resists the conclusion. You lean in closer, ear almost pressed to their mouth, searching for sound. You place your hand on their chest. Nothing moves.
You shake them gently at first, then harder. You call their name again, louder now, voice breaking completely. The sound echoes wrong in the small space. The body doesn't respond. Their mouth hangs open slightly, jaw slack, eyes still half open and glassy. You sit back slowly. The quiet that follows is worse than the storm. There is no dramatic moment, no release, just absence. A human being who was alive minutes ago is now an object on your floor. The change is subtle and absolute at the same time. You feel it settle into the room, thick and suffocating. You don't cry. Not at first. You stare at the body and feel something inside you shut down, like a door slamming closed. Crying would take energy. Grief would take energy. You don't have it. Instead, a numb practicality takes over. A voice in your head starts listing problems. What do you do with them? The ground outside is frozen solid. Even if you could dig, and you can't, you couldn't bury them properly. Leaving the body inside risks sickness. Leaving it outside means opening the door, fighting the storm, exposing yourself to cold that might kill you in minutes. And there is another thought, darker and quieter, that slips in before you can stop it. A body is meat. The thought makes you gag. You clamp your mouth shut, swallowing hard, bile burning your throat. You push the idea away violently, ashamed, horrified. But hunger doesn't care about shame. It notices the shape on the floor. It notices the smell. It whispers possibilities you don't want to hear. You press your hands against your face, digging your fingers into your temples, trying to push your thoughts back into order. You rock slightly without meaning to. The body remains still. Eventually, you pull the blankets back over them, covering their face. The act feels both respectful and futile. You sit there for a long time afterward, staring at the covered shape, listening to the wind, listening to the house creak and settle around you. The sod house feels different now. Not haunted, claimed. The presence of death changes the air. It makes everything feel closer, tighter, like the walls have leaned in to watch. You are acutely aware of your own breathing now, of how thin and ragged it sounds compared to what you just heard fade away. You move the body later. Not far, just to the coldest corner of the room, away from the stove. You drag it slowly, apologizing under your breath without realizing you're doing it. The weight surprises you. They feel heavier now than they should, like gravity has taken more interest in them. When you finish, you sit down hard, chest heaving. You realize then that you are alone again. The hallucinations stop for a while after that. No voices, no faces, no shadows pretending to be people. Reality has asserted itself brutally, leaving no room for tricks. The storm outside feels secondary now. Hunger feels distant. Cold feels distant. All of it is overshadowed by the simple fact that someone came to you for shelter and didn't leave alive. You replay it over and over. What if you had more food? What if you'd opened the door sooner? What if you hadn't? The questions loop endlessly, each one leading nowhere. There are no good answers, just outcomes. At some point, exhaustion claims you. Not sleep, collapse. You slump near the stove, eyes closing without your permission, mind too tired to fight it. Your dreams are shallow and ugly, full of fragmented images, the body breathing, then not, snow filling the room, hands reaching for you from under the sod. You wake abruptly, heart racing, convinced for a moment that the body has moved. It hasn't. Frost has formed along the edges of the blanket covering them. The room is colder than before. The fire has burned down again. Everything continues, indifferent. You understand something now with grim clarity. This winter isn't just trying to kill you. It's trying to hollow you out, piece by piece, until survival costs you things you didn't know you could lose. Mercy, certainty,
even the shape of right and wrong. It forces choices by removing alternatives. It turns tragedy into arithmetic. One life minus another. You sit there in the dim light, sharing space with the dead, listening to the storm grind on without end. The weight on the roof presses harder. The hunger inside you stirs again, quieter but persistent. Your body is still alive, still demanding fuel, still calculating. And somewhere deep inside, beneath horror and grief and shame, you feel a new, terrifying understanding take root. If the storm doesn't end soon, death will not be the worst thing that happens in this room. And you are no longer certain what you would do to stay alive. You wake to a sound so unfamiliar it takes a long moment to recognize it. Nothing. No wind tearing at the walls, no snow hammering the roof, no constant roar filling your head and pressing against your chest. Just silence, wide, heavy, and wrong. It sits in the sod house like a held breath, like the moment after something breaks but before the noise reaches you. You lie still, afraid to move, afraid to disturb it.
Your ears ring faintly, strained from days of noise. You listen harder, searching for the storm, for proof that this isn't another trick. Your own breathing sounds loud, wet, uneven. The fire has burned itself down to a few dull embers. The air is brutally cold, but it's a clean cold now, not forced, not attacking. The storm has passed. The realization comes slowly, cautiously, like an animal stepping into open ground. You sit up and the room doesn't shake. The walls don't hum. Snow does not slam into the roof. The ceiling is still low, lower than when this began, but it holds steady. No fresh dust falls. No new cracks sound. Your heart starts pounding again, not with fear this time, but with something closer to disbelief. You crawl to the window and scrape at it with numb fingers. The ice breaks easier than before, brittle and thin. You clear a larger patch and peer out. Light floods in. Real light, pale, blinding, painful to your eyes after so long in gray dimness. You squint and blink hard, tears streaming instantly. Outside is a world erased and rebuilt. Snow stretches unbroken in every direction, smooth and high, swallowing fences, paths, landmarks. The horizon is gone. The sky hangs low and white, heavy with cloud, but no longer moving. Everything is still. You sit back on your heels, dizzy, overwhelmed by the sudden absence of threat. Your body doesn't know what to do without the constant pressure. For days, weeks maybe, you've lived braced for impact, listening for failure. Now there's nothing to brace against. Your stomach cramps sharply, reminding you that survival hasn't paused just because the storm has. Hunger reasserts itself immediately, louder now that fear has loosened its grip. Cold sinks in deeper without the distraction of noise. And then you remember. The body. Your gaze drifts to the corner without you choosing it. The shape lies exactly where you left it, stiff beneath blankets rimed with frost. Death has finished its work. There is no ambiguity now, no watching for breath, no hoping. You look away. You pull yourself upright slowly, joints screaming, and move to the door. The door is buried solid, its outline barely visible under packed snow that is fused into something closer to ice. You set your shoulder against it and push experimentally. Nothing moves. The snow is deeper than you expect. It swallows your boots to the knee immediately, heavy and resisting. You fight for balance, arms flailing, heart racing as you imagine falling and not having the strength to get back up. The sod house behind you looks smaller than it ever has, nearly buried, a lumpy rise in an endless white field. The world is unrecognizable. Fences are gone, paths are gone. Even the ground feels abstract beneath all this snow. The sky presses down, colorless and vast. Sound behaves strangely out here. Your own movements feel muffled, swallowed by the snowpack. When you shout experimentally, the sound dies close to your mouth. You stand there for a long time, breathing hard,
letting the reality settle. You survived the storm. But survival doesn't feel like victory. Your body is wrecked. Your supplies are gone or close to it. Your shelter is damaged. And inside that shelter lies someone who didn't make it. The silence doesn't comfort you. It exposes everything that was hidden by noise. You force yourself to move. You trudge a slow circle around the sod house, scanning the land for signs of life. Smoke, movement, anything. The effort burns your legs and leaves you breathless after only a few steps. You have to stop often, leaning on the shovel like a crutch, vision darkening at the edges. Then you see it. A thin column of smoke, far away, barely visible against the white sky. It wavers weakly, uneven, like someone struggling to keep a fire alive. The sight hits you harder than any hallucination ever did. Your chest tightens painfully. Your eyes burn again, this time for a different reason. You are not alone. The thought feels dangerous, fragile. You don't trust it fully until you spot another sign. Dark shapes half buried in snow that might be the remains of a neighboring sod house. You squint, heart pounding, trying to separate hope from imagination. The shapes don't move. They don't vanish when you blink. They're real. You turn back toward your own shelter, suddenly aware of how exposed you are standing out here. The cold cuts deeper without the walls to blunt it. Your energy drains frighteningly fast. You retreat inside, sealing the door as best you can, packing snow back into place. Inside, the silence feels different now, less oppressive, still heavy, but shared somehow. You sit down hard near the stove and let your head fall into your hands. Your breath shakes. You don't cry, not fully, but something inside you finally loosens. The tension you've been holding for so long leaks out in small, uncontrolled ways. Your shoulders slump. Your hands tremble. You think about the smoke again, about the possibility of help, of people who endured their own versions of this storm, of warmth that doesn't come from a dying fire. The idea feels unreal, like it belongs to someone else's story. You are afraid to lean on it too much. Still, it changes things. You take stock again, this time with a different lens. What can you carry? What can you leave? Your movements are slow but purposeful now. You gather what little food remains, what fuel you can spare. You bundle yourself in every layer you own. You look at the body one last time, jaw tight, and make a decision you never thought you'd have the strength to make. You can't stay here. Not with the roof compromised, not with supplies this low, not with death sharing the space. Staying feels safer, but safety is an illusion now. Movement, as terrifying as it is, might be the only chance you have left. You open the door again. The light still hurts your eyes. The cold still burns, but the silence no longer feels like a threat. It feels like aftermath. You step out and face the open prairie, legs shaking, breath fogging thick in the air. Each step away from the sod house feels like tearing something loose inside you. You look back once, memorizing its shape, the way it sinks into the snow, the way it looks like part of the land it tried to resist. Then you turn toward the smoke. The walk is brutal. Snow drags at your legs, stealing strength with every step. You stumble often, catching yourself just in time, heart racing each time you nearly fall. The distance is farther than it looked. Everything is farther in this white world. Your lungs burn, your thighs scream, your vision narrows. You stop often. Rest becomes mandatory, not optional. You kneel in the snow, leaning on your shovel, breathing shallowly while cold creeps in fast. You force yourself up again each time, whispering to yourself, focusing on the next few steps instead of the whole distance. The smoke grows clearer eventually. You see the shape of another sod house, partially collapsed, snow piled high against its walls. You see footprints, real ones, human, messy and uneven but unmistakable. Your chest tightens painfully.
Relief surges so hard it nearly knocks you off your feet.
You call out. Your voice comes out hoarse, weak, barely recognizable. You try again, louder, and this time it carries. A shape appears in the doorway ahead. Another person, bundled and thin, moving stiffly like you do. They see you. They don't run, they don't wave, they just stand there for a long moment, staring, as if making sure you're real. When you reach them, you don't speak. There's nothing to say that wouldn't sound foolish. You step inside their shelter and collapse onto the dirt floor, strength finally gone. Hands grab your arms, steadying you, pulling you closer to warmth. There is food, not much, but enough. There is fire, real fire. There are other survivors, hollow-eyed and quiet, carrying the same weight you are. No one asks questions, no one recounts the storm. Everyone already knows. Later, much later, you sit wrapped in borrowed blankets, staring into flames that don't flicker like they're about to die. Your body shakes uncontrollably as warmth returns. Pain flares sharply as feeling comes back to places that went numb days ago. It hurts. You welcome it anyway. The storm is over, but you know better now. Winter didn't end, it just paused. And as you sit there among other survivors, surrounded by the wreckage of lives interrupted and reshaped, you understand something with quiet, unsettling clarity. You didn't come out of that sod house the same person who went in. Something stayed buried there in the dark. And something else, harder, quieter, more haunted, walked out in its place. You wake somewhere that is not yours. The first thing you notice is heat, real heat, pressing against your skin from all sides instead of leaking away the moment it touches you. It's uncomfortable at first, almost painful, like pins driven into flesh that's forgotten what warmth feels like. Your body reacts before your mind does. Muscles twitch, your jaw tightens, a low sound escapes your throat without permission. You open your eyes slowly. The ceiling above you is dirt, but not your dirt. The walls are sod, but arranged differently, patched in places you don't recognize. Smoke stains the ceiling in wide, dark smears, and the smell of it fills the air, thick, sharp, alive. A fire burns close by, strong enough that you can hear it crackle. The sound feels unreal after so long surrounded by wind. You don't move right away. Your body is heavy, sunk deep into borrowed blankets that weigh more than you expect. When you try to shift, pain flares along your limbs, bright and immediate. It takes your breath. You freeze again, riding it out, teeth clenched. The pain is clean compared to what you've been living with, sharp, honest. It means blood is flowing again. It means you're still here. Someone is nearby. You sense it before you see them, movement at the edge of the room, a shape leaning toward the fire. You turn your head slightly and catch sight of a figure wrapped in layers, posture bent, face half lit by flame. They glance toward you, eyes narrowing briefly, then relax when they see you're awake. No one speaks. That feels right. Words would be too much. Words would require explanations neither of you have the strength for. Instead, a cup is placed near your hand. You smell it before you touch it. Broth, thin but real, carrying the scent of fat and salt. Your mouth fills with saliva instantly. Your stomach tightens hard enough to make you groan softly. You lift the cup with both hands because one isn't enough. They shake as you bring it to your lips. The first sip burns. Not heat, salt, flavor. It shocks your system. You cough weakly, eyes watering, then force yourself to sip again, slower this time. The liquid slides down into you and settles there like something solid. Your stomach cramps in response, confused, but you keep going. The person by the fire watches closely, ready to take the cup if you falter. You don't. You drain what you're given, every drop, then hand the cup back reluctantly, already wanting more and knowing you shouldn't have it yet. You lean back and close your eyes. Your body trembles violently as it adjusts, muscles firing without coordination. You can't stop it. No one tries to. The fire crackles.
The sod walls hold steady. Outside, the world is quiet in a way that feels earned. When you open your eyes again, there are more people. 2, maybe 3. It's hard to tell. They move slowly, deliberately, conserving energy the way you recognize instantly. Their faces are drawn tight, skin stretched thin over bone, eyes sunken but alert. Every one of them looks like you must look, someone pulled back from the edge, but not far enough to forget it. They give you space. That matters. No one crowds you, no one asks questions. They understand without being told that your strength is fragile, that pushing now could undo everything. They've learned the same lessons, paid the same costs. You sit up gradually, propping yourself against the wall. The dirt is warm where the fire has been burning for days. That warmth seeps into your back, grounding you. You take stock of yourself automatically, hands cracked and bleeding, face raw, clothes stiff with dirt and sweat and smoke. You smell wrong, old, sour, not fully human. No one reacts to it. They smell the same. Time behaves differently here. There is a rhythm again. Someone tends the fire regularly. Someone melts snow and watches it carefully so it doesn't boil away. Someone counts supplies quietly, lips moving without sound. These small acts feel monumental after so long alone. You watch them with something like reverence.
Food comes again later, smaller than you want, larger than you expect. You eat slowly, painfully aware of every bite, every swallow. Your body protests again. Cramps, nausea, a wave of weakness that makes you grip the edge of the bowl until it passes. You keep the food down. That feels like a victory. As hours pass, you realize the silence here is different. It isn't empty, it's shared. You hear breathing that isn't yours, and don't panic. You hear movement and know what caused it. The absence of wind is no longer suspicious. It's just weather, resting. The prairie outside still exists, but it isn't pressing its face against the walls anymore. At some point, you become aware that someone is missing, not from this shelter, from your own. The thought hits you suddenly, sharp enough to steal your breath. Images surface uninvited. The sod house buried in snow, the body in the corner, the way the blankets had stiffened with frost. You close your eyes hard, jaw tightening, forcing the memory back down. Not now. You can't afford it now. But it doesn't go away. Later, when the fire burns low and someone adds fuel, you see it in their eyes too. The same distant look, the same weight behind the gaze. Loss hangs over this place like smoke. Everyone here left something behind. A house, a family member, a neighbor. Some of them don't talk about it. Some of them won't ever. You don't talk about it either. You sleep that night deeper than you have in days, but not peacefully. Your dreams are crowded. Faces overlap. Ceilings pour through ceilings. Voices call your name from behind walls you can't break through. You wake with a sharp gasp, heart racing, hands clawing at the blankets as if they're sod pressing down. Someone notices. They don't touch you. They just add more wood to the fire. The flames flare, light dancing across the walls, chasing shadows back into corners. Your breathing slows. You lie there staring at the ceiling, waiting for your pulse to settle. Morning comes quietly. Light filters in through a partially cleared window, pale but steady. You sit up and realize something is different. Your head feels clearer. Not clear, but clearer. The buzzing has faded. The edges of your vision are sharper. Hunger is still there, but it's no longer screaming. It's waiting. You test your legs and find they hold you. Barely, but enough. You stand with help and shuffle closer to the fire. The room spins briefly, then stabilizes. You breathe through it, grounding yourself in sensation. Heat on your face, dirt under your feet, the smell of smoke. Real things, reliable things. Outside, you hear movement.
Then you hear someone else shift nearby. A human sound, solid, present. Your breathing slows. Sleep comes unevenly. You dream of digging,
Endless digging. Snow above you, earth below you, no clear direction out. You wake with your heart racing and your hands clenched into fists, nails biting into skin. It takes several minutes to reorient yourself, to remember where you are. No one comments when you sit up shaking. You are not the only one. The days that follow blur together. Work, rest, hunger, cold, small victories, losses acknowledged quietly and moved past because there's no room to linger. The group becomes a system, each person a necessary part. You are given tasks that match your strength as it returns, slowly, painfully. You do them without complaint. Your body heals unevenly. Some things improve quickly. You can stand longer, walk farther, think more clearly. Other things don't. Your hands stay numb too easily. Your sleep never deepens fully. Loud sounds make your heart jump. Sudden silence makes your skin crawl. You notice these changes with a detached curiosity. This is what survival costs, you think. Not just pain, but alteration. One afternoon, a small party sets out toward a distant settlement. It's risky, but calculated. The storm has cleared paths enough to make travel possible again. Barely. The group needs confirmation, supplies, information, proof that the world beyond this cluster still exists. You watch them leave, bundled and careful, disappearing slowly into the white. You feel something twist in your chest as they go. Not fear for them, acceptance. You know now that survival always involves sending people into danger and hoping the math works out. They return 2 days later, exhausted, half frozen, alive. They bring news. Some settlements were wiped out completely, others barely held. Aid is moving slowly. Wagons, relief trains, delayed but coming. Spring will come eventually, but winter has more to say first. You listen without reacting. Relief doesn't hit you the way you expect it to. It feels distant, theoretical. You have learned not to trust future promises too much. You believe what you can see, touch, count. Still, the knowledge changes the air. There is an end now. Not close, not certain, but imaginable. People begin planning beyond the next day again, cautiously. Repairs are made with longevity in mind. Rations are adjusted. The group begins to look less like survivors and more like something resembling a community. You find yourself thinking about after. Not rebuilding yet, that feels too big, but leaving, moving on, telling someone what happened. You imagine trying to explain the storm, the hunger, the hallucinations, the body in the corner of your sod house.
The words don't come. You realize with a jolt that part of you doesn't want to explain it. Part of you knows it wouldn't translate. That people who weren't there would nod and misunderstand, would shrink it into a story with edges and lessons and closure. This doesn't have closure. One evening, as the fire burns low and the group sits in shared quiet, someone begins to talk. Not about the storm, not about death. They talk about the land agent who sold them their claim, about promises made, about what they believed this place would be. The tone is flat, almost amused. Others add small details, similar stories, similar lies. You listen without joining in. Something inside you hardens as you listen. Not anger, clarity. You understand now that this land doesn't reward belief. It responds only to preparation, to cooperation, to endurance. Anything else is noise. That night, you lie awake longer than usual. The firelight flickers across the sod ceiling, casting shadows that no longer try to become people. You breathe steadily, counting heartbeats, grounding yourself. Outside, the wind moves across the prairie like a restless animal, but it doesn't feel personal anymore. You think about who you were before winter, the version of you who believed hard work guaranteed safety, who thought solitude meant freedom, who looked at a sod house as a temporary inconvenience instead of a gamble with death. That person feels distant now. Not gone, just smaller. In their place is someone quieter, someone who counts, someone who watches other people more closely, someone who understands how thin the line is between endurance and collapse. Morning comes again. The sky is clearer. The snow sparkles painfully bright. You step outside and breathe deeply, cold air filling your lungs without burning. You feel steady on your feet, not strong, but stable. You are alive. You were rescued in the way prairie winters allow rescue, not traumatically, not cleanly, but through proximity, shared hunger, shared work, shared silence. No one carried you out. You walked, and others let you stay. As you turn back toward the shelter, ready to start another day of work, you realize something else with a quiet certainty that settles deep in your chest. The storm did not end when the wind stopped.
It ended when you were no longer alone inside it, and the cost of that lesson is something you will carry long after the snow melts, long after sod houses crumble back into the land they were cut from. You survived, but survival has changed you, and there is no going back. You wake before anyone else, even before the fire is stirred. The cold is there, but it no longer feels like an enemy pressing in to finish the job. It's just cold now, something to work around, something expected. You lie still for a while, listening to the quiet rhythm of breathing around you, to the faint shift of bodies wrapped in blankets, to the soft settling sounds of a shelter that has survived another night. Nothing is wrong. That realization takes longer than it should to settle. When you sit up, your body responds without panic. Stiff, sore, weak, but functional. You flex your hands slowly and feel sensation answer back. Dull, incomplete, but present. You swing your legs down and wait for the dizziness that used to come. It doesn't. That absence feels strange. You almost miss it, the way you might miss pain you've grown used to because it proved you were still paying attention. The fire is low, but alive. Someone must have banked it carefully before sleeping. You add a piece of fuel automatically, the motion so ingrained now it feels older than you are. The flame grows, light spreading across the sod walls, revealing the same shapes you've memorized over the last days. No surprises, no shadows pretending to be something else. Outside, the prairie waits. When you step out, the air is sharp and clean. The sky is pale blue, fragile-looking, like it could shatter if the wind decided to return. Snow stretches across the land in uneven drifts, but paths have begun to form, trampled roots between shelters, evidence of movement, of persistence. Smoke rises in thin, steady columns. Life is happening again, cautiously. You stand there breathing for a long time. Your chest rises and falls without strain. Your lungs no longer burn. The world doesn't tilt. For the first time since before the storm, your body isn't screaming for your attention every second. That quiet should feel like relief. Instead, it leaves room. And in that space, everything you pushed aside begins to surface. Images come without warning, not dreams, memories. The ceiling sagging in your sod house, snow forcing its way through cracks, hunger twisting you hollow, voices in the wind calling your name, the body on the floor, breathing, then not. You see it all with brutal clarity, as if the storm carried these moments forward with you and set them down gently, waiting for you to notice them again. Your heart rate picks up. Your shoulders tense. You force yourself to keep breathing, to stay where you are. You've learned that running from these thoughts only gives them power. You face them now, standing in the open cold, because you're strong enough to stand. You weren't before. That difference is unsettling. The day unfolds around you. Work resumes. Snow is shifted. Roofs are checked. Food is divided. Conversations happen in low tones, practical and restrained. You participate, hands moving, body contributing, but part of you stays slightly removed,
watching yourself from a distance. You notice how you scan every sound, how your eyes track movement automatically, how silence still makes your skin prickle. You are safe. You don't feel safe. Later, someone mentions spring, not with hope, with caution. A factual statement, like noting that fuel will run out eventually, or that snowmelt will flood low ground. Spring is something that happens if you live long enough, not a reward, not a promise. You nod along with the others, but inside the word lands strangely. Spring means the storm will be remembered instead of endured. It means people will talk about it. It means stories. You already know how those stories will sound. They will be shorter than the reality, cleaner. They will skip the long hours of waiting, the way hunger changed your thinking, the way darkness bent your perception. They will not capture what it felt like to realize you might die quietly, unnoticed, in a hole dug into the prairie. They will not explain what it costs to survive something like that. You don't correct this future version of events. You don't think you ever will. That night, you sleep in longer stretches, but not deeply. You wake often, heart jumping at imagined sounds. Each time you ground yourself, fire, breath, walls, people. Each time the panic fades faster. Progress is uneven, but it is real. Days pass. Your strength returns in increments so small they're easy to miss until you realize you can walk farther without stopping. You can lift more. You can think clearly through a full task without your mind slipping away. The group begins planning for dispersal, carefully, reluctantly. Not everyone will rebuild here. Some will move on when conditions allow. Others will stay, because leaving feels more dangerous than remaining.
You don't know what you'll do yet. The idea of building another sod house makes your stomach tighten. The idea of leaving the prairie entirely feels equally heavy. You've learned too much here to walk away untouched. Wherever you go next, this place will go with you. One afternoon, you walk alone for the first time since the storm. Not far, just beyond the cluster of shelters, where the snow lies undisturbed and a land stretches open again. The prairie looks deceptively calm, beautiful even, sunlight glinting off the snow like scattered glass. You stand there, hands at your sides, and feel the scale of it, the vastness that once promised freedom and nearly killed you. You understand it differently now. The land isn't cruel, it's indifferent. It doesn't test you, it doesn't judge you. It simply exists at a scale that punishes arrogance and rewards cooperation. You survived not because you were strongest or smartest or bravest, but because you adapted, because you accepted help, because you didn't face it alone when being alone became deadly. That knowledge settles into you quietly, reshaping something fundamental. You think about the sod house you built, how proud you were of it at first, how it smelled of earth and effort, how it became a track, then a tomb for someone else, then a memory you had to leave behind to stay alive. You imagine it now, slowly collapsing under its own weight as the snow melts, returning to the ground it was cut from. The prairie always takes its materials back. You return to the others as the light fades. That evening, someone asks, gently, if you want to talk about what happened to you during the storm. The question is offered without pressure, without expectation. You consider it seriously. You open your mouth. Nothing comes out. Not because the words aren't there, but because choosing which ones to release feels impossible. Everything feels equally important and equally insufficient. You shake your head once, apologetic. The person nods and lets it drop. You're grateful for that more than you can explain. As weeks pass, the snow recedes slowly. The prairie reemerges in patches, brown grass, dark soil, the scars left by winter. Life resumes its quiet insistence. Repairs are made, plans solidify. Some people leave when travel becomes possible. Some stay. You help where you can, your body steady now, your mind mostly clear.
Mostly. Certain things never fully leave you. You still wake before dawn, you still sleep lightly. Sudden noises make your pulse jump. Hunger, even when satisfied, leaves a faint echo behind it, like your body doesn't fully trust abundance anymore. You notice exits in every room. You count supplies automatically. You measure weather with more attention than anyone else seems to. These are not weaknesses, they are adaptations. One morning, you stand at the edge of the settlement, watching wagons prepare to move. The prairie stretches out again, no longer buried, but still vast. You feel the familiar tightening in your chest, the old mix of fear and resolve. This time, you recognize it for what it is. You are afraid, and you will move anyway. Because the storm taught you something permanent. Fear doesn't disappear when danger ends. It just changes its shape. Survival isn't about eliminating fear. It's about carrying it without letting it decide for you. As you turn back one last time, you look at the sod houses, some standing, some already slumping, temporary answers to permanent exposure. You think about the people who didn't make it, the ones buried under snow, the ones buried under silence, the one who died on your floor. You don't try to justify anything. You don't try to redeem the experience. You simply acknowledge it. You survived a prairie winter in a sod house. You endured hunger, isolation, hallucination, death. You learned what happens when the land removes all comforts and asks only one question: can you adapt fast enough? You did. But survival has a price. It lives in the way you watch the sky now, in the way silence never feels empty again, in the way warmth sometimes hurts, in the way you understand, deeply and permanently, how thin the line is between shelter and grave. As you step forward into whatever comes next, you know this truth with quiet certainty. The prairie never leaves you. It stays in your breathing, in your caution, in your resilience. You walked out alive, but part of you is still sleeping in a sod house under the snow, listening to the wind, counting breaths, waiting to see if the roof will hold. And that part of you will always remember exactly how close it came to not waking up at all.